Genesis chapter 14. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Aroich, king of Elasar, Chandorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tyndall, king of Goyim, that they made war with Brea, king of Sodom, and with Brisha, king of Gomorrah, Shinba, king of Ammon, and Shemember, king of Simbium, and the king of Bela, the same is Zorah. All these joined together in the valley of Siddim, the same is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13 years they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him, and smite the Raphim in Ashturium, Canaan, and the Zizum in Ham, and the Emim in Savi, Kirathim, and the Horites in their mouth Seir, unto Elparan, which is by the wilderness. And they returned, and came to Meshpa, the same is Kadesh, and smite all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites, and dwelt in the Hazarzon Tamar, and there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Goromar, and the king of Admin, and the king of Zebium, and the king of Belam, the same is Zorar, and he set the battle in array against them in the valley of Siddim, against Chelomar, king of Elam, and Tidal, Tidal, king of Goram, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arich, king of Elasar, 4 kings against the 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the king of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, and they fell there. And they that the remained fled to the mountains, and they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their victuals, and went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his good, and departed. And there came one that had escaped, and told Abram, and Abram the Hebrew. Now he dwelt by the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he led forth his trained men born in his house 318, and pursued as far as Dan. And he divided himself against them by night, he and his servants, and smite them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his brother Lot, and his good, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him, after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him at the valley of Shavel. The king is the same as the king's Val, and the Meschizodik, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was priest of God's Most High, and he blessed him, and said, Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heavens and earth, and blessed be God's Most High, who have delivered thy enemies into thy hand. And he gave him a tenth of all. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the person, and take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand unto Jehovah, God Most High, possessor of heavens and earth, that I will not take a thread, nor a shoe latch, nor aught that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich, save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portions of the men that went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion. Genesis 14 is the most surprisingly dense chapter in Abraham's story. On the surface, it's a war report. Underneath, it's teaching who Abraham is, how God promises works in the real world, and what kind of wealth/power God's people must refuse. It's also introduction of Melchizedek A priest king whose significance echoes through the rest of the scripture. Here's what God is saying through the chapter. Faith is happening in real geopolitics, not in a spiritual bubble. Chapter 14, verse 1 through 12. Four regional kings from Shinar, Elasar, Elam, Goim wage war against five city kings in the Jordan Plains, Sodom, Gomorrah, etc. The detail is intentional. The Bible is grounding Abraham's story in a world in a world of emperors, tributary systems, rebellion, and retaliation. Theological point. God's covenant promise to Abraham. I will bless you, protect you, bless the nations through you. It is not a private therapy plan. It will collide with real history, economics, war, and political violence. Lots. Sodom proximity finally produces consequences. They took Lot, who dwelt in Sodom. Genesis 13 already told you Lot pitched towards Sodom. Now he's fully in it and gets swept up in its faith. This is a moral principle in narrative form. What God is saying: choices of environments and alliances matter. You don't need to be the worst person in a wicked system to be harmed by it. Abraham the Hebrew, God's man acts like a brother keeper, told Abram the Hebrews. That title marks Abram as an outsider / sojourner. He doesn't belong to the city's states, yet he behaves with covenant responsibilities. Abraham responds to Lot's capture with courage and loyalty. He mobilizes trained men, 318 plus allies, Maram, Eshcol, Aner. Pursues a superior coalition, attacks strategically by night, and recovers peoples and goods. Theological point. Abraham embodies the opposite of Cain. Not, am I my brother's keeper? But this is my brother, I will risk myself. This is what covenant ethics look like before the law of Moses ever arises. What God is saying: my promise produces a certain kind of man, loyal, courageous, protective, not passive. Then the real climax: two kings meet, Abraham offering two gospels. After the victory, Abraham is confronted with two very different representatives. Melchizedek, priest king of Salem, blessing Abram in God's name. Melchizedek appears suddenly, king of Salem, often associated with Jerusalem. Salem also resonates with peace. Peace of God's Most High, El Elyon, brings bread and wine, royal hospitality, celebratory provision after battle. Blesses Abram and blesses God. Blessed be Abram of God's Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, who delivereth thine enemies. King Melchizedek interprets the victory theologically. God did it. Abraham responds by giving him a tenth. That not just generosity, it's recognition. God owns everything, possessor of heaven and earth. Melchizedek priesthood is legitimate. Abraham's success is under God's, not self. What God is saying through Melchizedek: I have true worshippers outside your clan. God isn't tribal. His Lord of heaven and earth. Your victory is my gift. The right response to power is worship and humility. And for later biblical theology, Melchizedek becomes a major pattern for priest plus king together. Echoes later in Psalm 110, and develops strongly in Hebrews as a pointer towards a greater priest king. Genesis plants the seeds without explaining everything yet. The king of Sodom: take the goods. Let Sodom be your benefactor. Give me the persons and take the goods. This is a different kind of offer, not blessing in God's name, but well tied to Sodom, moral universe, a relationship Abram could later be trapped by. Abram refuses with the solemn oath: I have lifted up my hand unto Jehovah, God's Most High. I will not take, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich. That is one of the cleanest integrity statements in Genesis. Abram will not let a wicked king buy his loyalty, claim credit for his prosperity, or entangle God's promise with Sodom's reputation. He allows only what is just for others. Food already eaten, allies portion, that practical righteousness, purity without cheating partners. What God is saying through Abraham's refusal: my people must not be funded by corruption. I am the one who enriches you. Don't outsource your identity to compromise benefactors. Victory is not permission to profit from evil systems. The big message of Genesis 14 in one sentence: God shows that Abraham covenant faith operates in real world conflict, produces brother keeping courage, receives priestly blessings, and responds with worship, and then passes the test of wealth by refusing Sodom's riches so that God alone, not a wicked power, gets the credit for Abraham's future greatness. And that is Genesis 15.